Hello, thank you very much for joining me today. The topic today is no blame culture for outstanding success. So let's get started. For any individual to be successful, the individual must develop a no blame attitude. Similarly, for any organization to be successful, that organization must develop a no blame culture. So, what is a no blame culture? So, let's have a look. Individuals with a no blame attitude take full responsibility for all their actions. When things do not work, when things do not work out the way they expect, they do not look for someone else to blame. When things go wrong, people with no blame attitude look for what has gone wrong, not who has done something wrong. They then investigate how to influence the circumstances or the people so that they can get a better results next time. Sometimes this can be a very slow process, yet it can be highly productive. When something goes wrong, they take it as an opportunity for them to learn and improve and influence others to be more successful. In a no blame culture organization, they have clear objectives, goals, and plans. In a no blame culture, everyone understands organization's objectives and plans. Members of the organization, they understand the agreed processes and procedures. If they require any help or guidance, they know how to get help and advice and from whom. Dealing with success and failures. As you progress towards your goals, it is natural to have some setbacks. That's the human nature. That happens everywhere. In a no blame culture, everyone treats every setback as an opportunity for growth and learning. In a no blame culture, when something goes wrong, they find out the reasons, they find out the lessons could be learned from that failure, and they apply those lessons rigorously. I like to share two stories to demonstrate the qualities of outstanding leaders practicing no blame culture. Both relates to Dr. Abdul Kalam. You may have heard of him. Dr. AJP Abdul Kalam was an Indian aerospace scientist. From 2002 to 2007, he served as the 11th President of India. He was born and raised in Rameswaram in Tamil Nadu, and he studied physics and aerospace engineering. He was born in October 1931 and passed away in July 2015. The first story was told by Abdul Kalam. He was involved in that story, but it was not purely about him. In this story, he describes how he learned to face failure. In 1973, Dr. Kalam became the project director of India's satellite launch program SLV-3 at ISRO. Their goal was to put India's Rohini satellite into orbit by 1980. So they had plenty of years. And thousands of scientists and engineers worked together to achieve this goal. Dr. Kalam remembered what happened in 1979. He says, month was probably August. We thought we were ready. As the project director, I went to the control center for the launch. At 4 minutes before satellite launch, the computer began to go through the checklist. And 1 minute later, the computer program put the launch on hold. The display showed that some controls were not in order. But my experts told me not to worry. They had done their calculations. There was enough reserve fuel. So I bypassed the computer, switched to manual mode, and launched the rocket. In the first stage, everything worked fine. In the second stage, a problem developed. Instead of the satellite going into the orbit in the space, the whole rocket system plunged into the Bay of Bengal. It was a big failure. It was my failure. That day, in spite of the fear of possible heavy criticism, the chairman of the Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, Professor Satish Dhawan, had called a press conference. Professor Dhawan, as the leader of the organization, conducted the press conference himself with Dr. Kalam. Professor Dhawan took full responsibility for the failure. He said that the team had worked very hard, but that they needed more technological support and more time. Kalam recounts, Professor Dhawan assured the media that in another year, the team would definitely succeed. Now, I was the project director. It was my failure. But instead, Professor Dhawan took the responsibility for the failure as the chairman of the organization. Next year, in July 1980, we tried again to launch the satellite. And this time we succeeded. The whole nation was jubilant. Everyone was celebrating. Again, there was a press conference. This time, Professor Dhawan called me aside and said, "You conduct the press conference today." Dr. Kalam says, I learned a very important lesson that day. When failure occurs, the leader takes the responsibility for that failure. When success comes, he gives it to his team. The best management lesson I have learned did not come to me from a reading book. It came from that experience. The second story was about Abdul Kalam's leadership behavior reported by someone else. A group of scientists at DRDO, Defense Research and Development Organization, were working on a hectic project, and all of them were working hard and they were under a lot of pressure. One day in the morning, a scientist came to his boss's office and requested permission to leave early that day at 5:30 p.m. because he promised his children that he would take them to the exhibition in the evening. His boss agreed, okay, you are allowed to leave the office today early. Don't worry. And then what happens? The scientist started working, and after lunch, he got involved so much in his work, to such an extent in his work, that he forgot everything else in the outside world. He suddenly looked at his watch and noticed that the time was 8:30 p.m., well past 5:30 p.m. He remembered that he promised to take his children to the exhibition. He was extremely worried. He looked for his boss. The boss wasn't there. So he closed everything, locked the office, and he went home. Deep within himself, he was feeling very guilty for disappointing his children. When he reached home, children were not there. His wife was sitting alone in the hall reading a magazine. He asked his wife, "Where are the children?" Wife replied, "Didn't you know? Your manager came here at 5:15 p.m. and took the children to the exhibition." The boss saw the scientists working so hard, so he decided to take scientists' children to the exhibition himself. He did not want that promise made by the father to his children to be broken. And the boss was none other than Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. This story was published in the Free Press Journal on the 15th of October 2018 to commemorate Abdul Kalam's birth anniversary. There have been many other outstanding leaders in our recent times. Nelson Mandela, Mother Teresa, just two of them, and there were many more. You all can develop a no blame attitude and become outstanding leaders of organizations with a no blame culture. Good luck to all of you. Thank you for listening to me. See you again soon.